In Alabama, where moss hangs heavy like memories and the night comes slow like a held breath. Cemeteries are not just fields of stone, they are open doors. Doors to stories, to whispers, to footsteps that should not echo. Some graves sink as if someone beneath them moves still. Some headstones stay warm at night, as if touched by unseen hands. Visitors return pale, shaken, swearing they heard their name from inside the darkness, carried by a voice they knew, a voice long dead. Tonight, we walk through the resting places of Alabama. Places where the dead do not sleep. Where shadows lean against marble crosses. Where cold fingers brush ankles in the dark. Do not fall behind. Do not answer if someone calls you. This journey begins here, among the graves. Hello dear listener. Welcome once again, to another night where silence has weight. Where memories breathe through old stones. And where eternal sleep is anything but peaceful. I hope you are comfortable, maybe sitting quietly with dim lights. Because tonight we visit the 20 most haunted cemeteries in Alabama. Places where past lives echo in footsteps. Where flowers die too quickly. Where statues cry tears of rust when the moon is high. People enter these graveyards to pay respect, to explore, to take pictures. Yet many leave running, trembling, never looking back. Some swear they felt a hand grip their wrist from underground. Others heard singing from empty air, gentle, sad, in a voice missing for 100 years. Before we begin, tell me in the comments, if you had to spend one long hour alone inside a haunted cemetery, would you sit beside an old Childa-esque grave or walk deeper among unmarked stones where no one remembers the names? Think carefully, now, step gently, the soil here listens. Maple Hill Cemetery in Huntsville is peaceful under daylight. Sunlight filters through old oak trees, warming marble markers softened by time. The air carries birdsong. Grass sways lightly, each breeze respectful and gentle. But when evening settles and shadows stretch between the gravestones, the cemetery changes. A stillness arrives that feels deeper than quiet, heavier than night. And beyond the headstones, through a small trail of trees, sits a playground unlike any other. Locals call it the Dead Children's Playground. Swings stand in a neat row, rust tracing their chains. Slides creak in the wind, even when no wind moves. Sand lies smooth like a blank page. In the day it looks like any other place built for laughter. Yet when darkness falls, stories say the playground wakes. Children's giggles drift through the trees, soft at first, then clearer, like distant joy echoing across the night. Visitors pause, listening, realizing no real children are present. The swings move by themselves. On windless nights the chains begin to sway, slow at first, just enough to stir the sand beneath. Then they rock higher, metal scraping softly in rhythm. The sound is subtle and eerie, like bones brushing stone. Footsteps crunch nowhere. Slides remain still. Until, suddenly, one will tremble slightly like someone just climbed down. Those who watch too closely feel the air cool around them. As though unseen figures play nearby. More than one visitor has sat at the edge of the playground and watched shadows dart between equipment. Small shapes, quick and light, like children running from slide to swings. They flicker at the corner of vision, never clear enough to fully see. One moment a silhouette stands beneath the monkey bars, the next the figure is gone. Sand remains undisturbed. No footprints mark the ground. Some believe these shadows belong to children buried in the cemetery nearby. Little ones whose lives ended early, now playing where they once might have played in life. Others say the playground rests where an orphanage once stood, lost to time. The spirits, they think, linger here still, returning to laughter they never finished. Whether truth or myth, the phenomenon continues. One evening a man visited with only a flashlight. Curious, not afraid. He walked between tombstones. Until he reached the playground clearing. Moonlight poured silver across the empty swings. He sat on a bench, listening to the night. Crickets chirped. Leaves rustled faintly. After several minutes, the first swing moved. Just a gentle sway. He scanned the tree-line for wind or animals. But air remained still. Then another swing moved beside the first. Swaying slightly out of rhythm. Slowly the creaking chains harmonized. Scraping sand in soft cadence. The sound grew steady, like children pushing off the ground in slow play. The man felt the hair on his arms rise. But he stayed. He swore he heard laughter then. A light giggle. Not close, but near enough to make him turn. Nothing stood behind him. When he looked back at the swing, it moved higher. As if a small weight pressed it forward. Many who visit report hearing their names whispered. Just faint enough to doubt. Others hear running footsteps approaching behind them. But when they turn, nothing stands there. No indentations form in sand where footsteps should fall. Just silence. A woman once left a ball at the playground during a quiet summer night. She placed it at the center of the open space, setting her camera nearby. She stepped back, watching through the lens. For minutes nothing happened. Then the ball rolled gently forward, though no wind stirred. It paused, rolled again, then veered toward the swings. The chains began to sway soon after. She felt a soft brush of air pass her shoulder like a child running past. When she checked the footage later, faint orbs moved across the screen, drifting near the swings, bright like tiny fireflies made of pale light. Stories spread easily through town. Some say they saw two small figures sitting on swings, feet dangling, unmoving. They blinked once, and the figures vanished, chains swaying as if pushed. Others claim to have heard faint singing from behind the slide. A lullaby. Just a few notes before fading into night. The feeling here is not cruel. Many describe warmth in the giggles, a joy untouched by time. As though these children, if spirits they are, simply play in a place they remember fondly. The sadness lies only in their absence after sunrise. Morning returns Maple Hill Cemetery to peace. Dew sparkles on grass. Sun warms the playground. Everything stands still. No movement. No laughter. The swings hang quiet. Sand smooth as if no one touched it. Footsteps from visitors remain the only prints. But those who return at night know how quickly stillness breaks. A couple exploring the cemetery late one fall evening decided to walk to the playground. They sat on the old bench, holding hands beneath star-filled sky. The swings were motionless at first, chains cold and stiff. Minutes passed. A light breeze began, but only touched the treetops. The swings remained still. Then gently one moved. A soft creak. Another followed, rocking as if nudged by small hands. The couple watched, breath slow, afraid to speak. Then came laughter. A faint chorus, high and distant, like children playing tag. Shadows darted across sand, quick flickers without form. The couple stood to leave, feeling watched by something unseen yet harmless. As they walked away, they glanced back once. All swings hung still again, chains quiet. Maple Hill Cemetery holds history engraved in stone. Lives lived and ended. Stories preserved in names weathered smooth by rain. And near the edge, where trees part and playground rests, something lingers. Not menace. Not sorrow. Just the hint of play. If you visit at night, stand quietly. Listen for giggles drifting across the clearing. Watch the swings even when wind sleeps. You might see a shadow rush by, small and quick as a child at play. You might hear laughter where no living child stands. And though footsteps never follow in the feeling of presence will. A reminder that not all spirits seek fear. Some simply want one more night on the playground. Church Street graveyard rests beneath old mobilia's branches like a memory too heavy to forget. Iron gates guard weathered tombs, marble names softened by time. And Spanish moss drips from oak limbs like pale fingers reaching toward stone. Even during the day, the place feels quiet in a way that touches the bones. A hush that settles between gravestones, deep and old, as though every whisper spoken here long ago still lingers beneath the leaves. When night comes, the graveyard changes. Shadows stretch across cracked pathways. Lantern light from the street flickers and fades. The deeper one walks among the markers. The scent of damp earth rises, mixed with the sweetness of decaying moss. And the ocean air that flows from the bay. Wind moves slow, brushing through the hanging moss so it sways like veils caught between this world and the next. This cemetery holds history as well as rest. Soldiers, merchants, children, strangers all lie beneath the same quiet soil. Yet one figure brings visitors back again and again, not for stone or inscription, but for something far more haunting. They speak of a woman in a black veil who appears after midnight, gliding among graves without sound. Never hurried, never still, she moves with purpose like she searches for something lost long ago. Her face is never seen. The veil hides every feature, falling to her chest like night itself. She wanders the winding paths, pausing near certain headstones as if reading names through layers of time. Some say her dress is old-fashioned, long and trailing lightly behind her. Others claim she fades at the edges like smoke drifting through moonlight. No footsteps follow her movement. No rustle of fabric. Only the soft shift of moss and the whisper of her presence. Those who dare to follow describe a strange sensation. At first they hear her breathing, faint and steady. Then whispers rise, not quite words, more like fragments of sound layered with sorrow. Step too close and the air chills, breath fogging even in summer heat. She never turns her face. Never tilts her head toward those behind her. She simply continues to walk. Until she reaches the gate. Not fading slowly or walking beyond sight. She vanishes in a blink, gone as if she stepped into the night itself. Her followers reach the gate moments later only to find empty air where she stood, grass undisturbed, path untouched. One visitor walking home late claimed he heard footsteps behind him though no one else walked the street. He turned to see a figure in black enter the graveyard without sound. Gliding beneath the moss. Drawn by curiosity and caution, he followed. She moved ahead as if unaware of him, pausing near graves whose names had long worn away. When he tried to call out, no voice left his throat. Instead he heard whispers close to his ear, like words formed only for him. He never understood them, but their tone felt mournful, longing. When she reached the gate again, she vanished like a candle snuffed. The visitor left without once glancing back. Another story comes from two students exploring downtown after a late event. The moon hung silver above, clouds drifting thin across its face. As they reached the gate, they saw a woman in a black veil standing among the stones. She did not move at first. Then she began to walk, trailing dark fabric across moss-covered ground. One student whispered about following her. They entered quietly, hearts pounding slow and heavy. The woman drifted deeper into the cemetery, never looking back. They followed, step by careful step. Whispers filled the air around them, soft at first, then clearer, like someone speaking just beyond understanding. The woman moved toward the exit gate. Before their eyes she simply ceased to exist, fading into night without leaving even a footprint behind. Legends say she might be a grieving widow who visited this place every evening after losing a husband to illness long ago. Some believe she was never able to let go, returning even after death to walk the same path. Others think she searches for someone she cannot find, lost to time or memory, and her whispers are fragments of an unfinished goodbye. No records reveal her name. She exists only in the stories of those who have seen her. Imagine walking there yourself. Midnight. Air thick with stillness. Moonlight casts long shadows across stone, glinting off names barely visible anymore. You pass the iron gate and feel temperature dip, not harsh, but noticeable, like a breath across skin. Spanish moss sways, brushing your shoulder with soft cool touch. You step deeper into the graveyard, path narrow beneath your feet. The world outside fades. Streetlights no longer reach you. Then you see her. A figure dressed in black among the graves, veil swinging gently like a pendulum marking time. She begins to walk, and you find yourself moving too, drawn as if by something older than curiosity. Whispers rise around you, gentle yet haunting. You cannot tell if they come from her or from the trees, or from somewhere beneath the earth. She glides ahead, never slowing. You follow without choosing to. Every step feels heavy yet silent, your heart loud in your chest. When she reaches the gate, she lifts her head. For a moment you think she will turn and reveal her face. Instead she vanishes into shadow, leaving only the sway of moss and the echo of whispers that cling to the air like perfume. You stand alone, unsure whether to leave or wait for her to appear again. The path behind you seems longer than before. The names on stone seem sharper, like new carvings. The night holds your breath, waiting. Church Street Graveyard remains one of Mobilia's oldest resting grounds. Yet the woman in black continues to walk its paths as though time never touched her. Those who follow her hear whispers of grief, of love, of something unfinished. And she always disappears before reaching the gate, as if bound to sacred ground by memory itself. In the quiet of night, beneath moss like fingers brushing stone, you might find her too. Walking without sound. Searching without end. And if you follow her long enough, you may hear the whispers she carries a story told in breath and shadow. Fading before dawn like the woman herself. Old Cahaba lies quiet beside the Alabama River, moss-draped trees guarding the last breath of what was once the state's capital. Streets have vanished beneath soil and leaves, chimneys stand alone where houses once warmed families, and time has swallowed voices that once filled its halls. Chimneys stand alone where houses once warmed families, and time has swallowed voices that once filled its halls. Time has swallowed voices that once filled its halls. But in the cemetery, where iron gates rust and gravestones lean gently into earth, the past does not rest easily. The past does not rest easily. Visitors wander among the worn markers carved with names fading under rain and age. Wildflowers push through cracks, and cicadas hum long into humid evenings. In the day, the cemetery feels peaceful, a place where the old world lingers softly. Yet when night arrives and moonlight filters through tangled oaks, something stirs in the silence. People claim lantern lights drift slowly between the trees, flickering like souls searching for a path home. These lights appear without explanation. Not bright like electric bulbs, but warm and wavering, as if carried by unseen hands. They hover like someone paying respects. As if the bearer stepped behind an invisible curtain. Allow the night to settle. One traveler spoke of visiting Old Cahaba Cemetery past midnight. Fog crawled low across ground, soft as breath on glass. Fireflies blinked in distant patches. But the light he saw was too steady, too purposeful. A lantern glow drifted among tombstones, slow and measured, like someone on patrol. Like someone on patrol. Every few steps it paused, as though the unseen guide listened for something only he could hear. Curiosity pulled him forward. Gravel crunched beneath shoes, loud in quiet air. He stepped carefully past leaning stones, eyes fixed on the moving light. When he reached the center of the cemetery, the lantern glow dimmed suddenly. The traveler felt a tug at his coat, gentle but undeniable, like fingers grasping for attention. He turned quickly. No one stood near. Only the rustle of leaves answered. Yet the coat tug felt real, the pull enough to stop him from taking another step toward the fading glow. Others tell of similar touches. A hand brushing lightly across sleeve. A hand brushing lightly across sleeve. A tug at jacket hem. A tug at jacket hem. The sensation of someone walking beside them though no footsteps sound. The sensation of someone walking beside them though no footsteps sound. Visitors describe feeling watched, not with malice, but with quiet longing. Visitors describe feeling watched, not with malice, but with quiet longing. As if someone hopes for company. As if someone hopes for company. As if someone forgotten reaches out from the edge of time. Legends say the spirits here wander because Cahaba's end came abruptly. Floods swept through. The capital moved. People left behind dreams, belongings, graves. Lives that once built a bustling town now echo only in broken bricks and buried doorsteps. Some believe those who lived, loved, and died here now search for homes that no longer stand. Their lanterns wander old streets traced only in memory. Breathing space. Ghost hunters, historians, and campers come seeking proof of the Cemeteries stories. They speak of hearing whispers carried by wind, faint as a memory. They set cameras and audio recorders near tree lines where light appears most. Equipment captures only silence, yet the feeling of presence remains strong. One group experienced sudden cold around a gravestone though the night air stayed warm and still. Their flashlights dimmed slightly, and shadows stretched long though no one moved. A woman who visited on a warm autumn night found herself drawn to a grave marked by a crumbling angel statue. She said she heard soft footsteps behind her, slow and cautious, like someone walking through dew-covered grass. She turned expecting a friend, but saw nothing. When she faced forward again, a lantern glow now hovered beside the angel statue. Just for a moment. Then it vanished like a candle snuffed by wind. Imagine walking through old Cahaba Cemetery under a moon that hangs low, casting silver across the iron gate. The air sits heavy with humidity, thick with earth and river scent. You feel alone at first, but soon the night feels shared, as if unseen eyes watch with quiet interest. A soft light flickers ahead. It moves gently, swaying like carried by hand. The lantern grows brighter for an instant, golden and warm. Then dims. You stop. Something tugs your coat from behind a light, almost polite. You turn, breath held. Only night greets you. And yet the feeling of company stands close enough to sense but not see. You step back, heart steady but alert. The lantern glow appears once more to your left, then glides deeper into trees. You feel drawn in two directions, a forward into mystery, or back to the comfort of the open path. A distant owl calls. The lantern fades completely. Breathing space. Some visitors believe the spirits of Cahaba greet those who show respect. Others think the lantern bearers seek guidance, hoping travelers might lead them home. A few whisper that when a soul tugs your coat, it is asking you to stay a little longer, to share a moment of remembrance. The cemetery is not cruel, only restless. A place where history breathes through moss and stone. If you ever visit Old Cahaba, walk gently. Notice the way shadows lean, how the air shifts between graves. When night falls and lantern lights appear like wandering stars between the trees, stand still. Watch. And if someone tugs your coat in the dark, pause before you run. It may be only a reminder that this place once lived, and still does in ways we cannot see. The lost capital sleeps here, yet some hearts still wake. Lanterns drift through branches. Footsteps linger without sound. And the past asks quietly to be remembered. Adams Grove Presbyterian Church sits alone in rural Alabama, settled among oak trees heavy with moss, their branches hanging low like tired arms. The white wooden walls of the church are faded to gray, paint peeled by decades of storms and relentless summer heat. Roof shingles curl like brittle pages, and windows stand empty, dark as open eyes that see everything and reveal nothing. Beside the church lies the cemetery, stones weathered and leaning, names carved so long ago that some letters have softened into unreadable shadows. Family plots clustered in neat rows speak of weddings once celebrated here, of funerals, baptisms, sermons carried through echoing rafters. Life once filled this place. Voices once rose in prayer beneath the high ceiling. But those who visit after sunset say silence does not always rule. People have heard music drifting from the church long after the doors were sealed shut. Not a hum or distant tune, but full organ chords rolling through night like waves of sound pressing against broken walls. Deep, solemn notes fill the air with a sense of ceremony, as though someone inside plays for a congregation that no longer exists. Yet the organ was removed decades ago. There is nothing inside but dust, broken benches, and echo. Still, the music plays. Travelers passing along the dirt road stop their cars, wind down windows, and listen breathless. The notes drift into the cemetery, weaving between tombstones like warm wind. Some say the music sounds joyful. Others swear it carries sadness, heavy as rain. Everyone agrees it feels alive. One visitor, a man searching for ancestral graves, arrived just before dusk. He placed fresh flowers on a stone and lingered to take pictures. As sun dipped low, he heard it. Faint at first, like someone practicing scales. Then stronger, a hymn rising through rafters that should have been hollow. He stepped toward the church, heart uneasy. Through broken window he saw only darkness, but the music flowed around him as though he stood inside the hall, surrounded by unseen congregation. When he called out, the music stopped instantly. The silence afterward felt heavier than sound. He left quickly, not looking back. Others have witnessed more. A group of students exploring abandoned churches traveled here one autumn evening with flashlights. They pushed open the heavy wooden doors, hinges groaning. Dust floated like snowflakes in their beams. Pews were scattered, some overturned. Birds nested in rafters. Cobwebs draped the pulpit like lace. They sat quietly, daring the darkness to answer. Minutes passed. A sound like breath filled the room, cool air shifting as though someone walked unseen. Then a single note rang out clear as bell, impossibly loud for an organ that no longer exists. Another note followed. Then chords. Music swelling so richly that students froze, afraid to move. Voices joined the melody. Soft at first, then fuller, like a choir harmonizing through long memory. Words could not be made out, but tone carried meaning, devotion, longing, reverence folded into gentle sound. One student whispered to another to run, but her voice seemed swallowed by music itself. When the overhead lights they brought flickered, they fled. Outside, the music faded with each step away from the church until nothing remained but crickets and night wind. Locals know the stories well. Some believe the music is a memory, playing on repeat through time itself, echo of worship still clinging to rafters. Others say the departed return to sing hymns where they once gathered weekly, unwilling to let silence take what was sacred. Perhaps those voices never left. Imagine walking the cemetery path alone. Moonlight pools across marble, gleaming silver over names and dates. A breeze moves through the grass, carrying scent of earth and old leaves. You pause beneath the doorway of the church, peering into shadow. The wood creaks softly like someone shifting inside. Then music begins. A low hum, swelling into full chords that roll outward like water against stone. You step closer without realizing, drawn by sound that feels familiar though you have never heard it before. Through cracked window frames, you see movement, not shapes, not faces, but a shimmer, as though light bends around something unseen. Shadows stretch across empty pews like silhouettes of people seated in prayer. Voices rise together. Not loud. Not threatening. Beautiful, in a way that sends warmth through chest and cold across spine. You feel as though you have intruded on something intimate, a moment not meant for the living. The music lowers but does not stop. As you reach the cemetery gate, it softens to whisper, then melts into night entirely. One woman from a nearby town says she hears singing when she drives past on foggy mornings. Not full choir, but one voice humming long-forgotten tune. She never stops. She keeps driving, windows up, eyes forward, yet she never forgets the sound. Some visitors claim they spoke softly inside, only to hear whispers reply though no human voice produced them. Others describe footsteps on balcony long collapsed, as though someone unseen still walks up there. But always, the church gives more sound than image. Music where no instrument remains. Voices where no throats speak. Adams Grove Presbyterian Church stands silent to the eye, yet alive to the ear. The cemetery rests calm, stones watching over earth that holds countless stories. But after dark, when the world grows thin and memories draw close, the church seems to breathe again. Hymns lift from nowhere. Choirs gather without bodies. And music fills a room long abandoned. If you stand beneath the doorway on such a night, close your eyes and listen. Let the notes carry you back to days when benches were full. When lanterns glowed warm. When families sang together beneath rafters. You may feel the hair on your arms rise. But not entirely out of fear. Something in the music feels like longing. Like love for a place not ready to be forgotten. The church stands silent, surrendered to time. But its voice remains. When organ music begins and unseen choir sings, you will know you stand in a place where memory refuses to die. Bay's Cemetery sits hidden in the woods of Irondale, Alabama, where old gravestones lean beneath moss and oak roots curl around history like fingers. Many of the graves belong to Civil War soldiers, their names fading with rain and time. Weathered crosses stand like silent watchers, guarding stories carved deep into the soil. But when the sun falls below the tree line and dusk settles thick over the forest floor, people say the past returns in footsteps and whispers. Locals speak of soldiers who marched through the night. Spirits of men who never left the battlefield behind. Long after the war ended, long after rifles fell silent, the echo of conflict still lingers here. Heavy boots crunch across gravel paths though no one living walks them. The sound comes slow and steady, as if a line of tired men moves forward in the dark. Some hear multiple sets of footsteps, pacing like troops advancing under moonlight. Others hear only one, dragging slightly, as though a soldier wounded but determined still marches. Visitors who dare to stay after sunset often describe the same sound: metal clinks, faint and sharp, like buttons or canteens brushing against a uniform. The noise drifts through trees, followed by a low murmur. Not conversation, but the restless breath of men not at peace. It feels as though the soldiers move with purpose, still holding to duty after death, unwilling to rest while memory burns. One man once visited Base Cemetery near midnight, curious about the stories. He carried only a lantern and walked carefully between graves, reading names half erased by time. Everything remained still for a while. Wind barely touched the trees. He felt alone, but comfortable. Then he heard it. A single boot striking gravel. Another followed. Then more, joining like a small procession. The man stood frozen, ears straining. The footsteps moved closer, steady as drumbeat. He raised his lantern toward the path, expecting to see someone walking toward him. Nothing appeared. Only darkness and trees. Yet the steps continued, passing him though no body crossed his sight. He felt cold air brush his sleeve, like a soldier marching by, unseen. When he finally found courage to speak, asking if someone was there, the footsteps halted. Silence stretched thick as fog. And then a voice, faint as dying breath, whispered through the branches. Just a few words, but clear enough to chill his blood. The war is not done. He ran then, leaving lantern swing behind him as boots continued marching into darkness. Not all encounters are so direct. Some visitors set flowers on graves during evening hours, only to feel watched. A weight in the air, gentle but heavy. As if soldiers stand nearby observing quietly, respectful yet lingering. People report seeing movement at the corner of vision. A shadow shaped like a man in uniform, cap low over brow, rifle outline across shoulder. Blink and he is gone. But footsteps remain, echoing faintly like memory. Others describe hearing the rustle of fabric beside them, like wool coats brushing against branches. Horses have been heard too, hooves dull against earth, snorting breath through night. Base Cemetery holds history rooted in sacrifice. Stories say soldiers were buried here far from home, some never knowing the war had ended. Their families gone. Their battles unfinished. This land remembers. The ground seems to breathe with old tension. At night the air cools quickly, fog creeping low between gravestones. In that mist figures sometimes appear, wisps shaped like men carrying rifles that shimmer faintly before dissolving. The ground remembers. A group of students once visited for a late-night thrill. They stood near a large oak where several veterans rest. They laughed and took pictures, unaware of the weight of silence. As the hour passed, laughter grew quieter, replaced by unease. Suddenly boots struck gravel like someone marching behind them. The footsteps were strong, rhythmic. The students turned together, expecting a guard or another group. The path was empty. Still they heard marching, circling them like unseen troops surrounding the living. Panic rose. One dropped his flashlight, and in the moment of darkness he swore he saw silhouettes around them. When he picked the light up again, nothing remained. Only rustling leaves, the echo of boots fading into night. Some claim voices carry through trees like old orders shouted across battlefield lines. Others hear humming, low and mournful, like soldiers singing to keep fear away in trenches long gone. A woman once brought her young son during twilight to leave flowers on a family grave. As they turned to go, both heard a whisper behind them, quiet but close. The woman did not understand the words fully, but her son heard clearly. He said a man told him he must go home before dark. They left fast, looking back only once to see mist gathering where they stood moments before. Even the breeze behaves differently here. On still nights, air grows cold near certain graves, as though someone stands there unseen. Touching stone feels like touching time itself, worn smooth by hands long gone. Those who stay long enough say they feel grateful rather than afraid. As if the spirits march not to harm, but to remember. Daylight softens everything. Birds call from high branches. Leaves glow bright against sunlight. The graves stand quiet, patient. Visitors walk without tension. But even then, if you listen carefully near the tree line, you might catch faint rhythm of boots hidden beneath wind. A reminder that history breathes here still. If you ever stand in Base Cemetery under a moonlit sky, breathe slow. Listen. You may hear gravel shift beneath invisible feet. You may feel metal clink faint in the dark. And if a whisper reaches your ear, soft and weary, remember the past never truly rests. The soldiers of base march through night as though war continues, duty unbroken. Footsteps echo across time. The war is long finished, but to those who walk unseen between gravestones, perhaps it never ended at all. Pine Flat Cemetery sits quiet beneath tall pines, where wind moves through branches like distant whispers from another time. The grass grows uneven between headstones, soft and thick with dew after nightfall. Names carved into stone are weathered, letters fading like memories themselves. During sunlight hours, the cemetery feels peaceful, serene, a place where families once came to remember. But when dusk fades into night and moonlight spills across the ground like cold silver water, the air changes. They tell of a woman in white who wanders among the graves. She moves slowly, drifting between stone markers as though searching for someone she cannot find. Her dress is long, fabric fluttering in the slightest breeze, pale as the moon above. Some say she appears barefoot, others swear she floats without touching ground at all. Her hair hangs loose and tangled, falling like a veil across her shoulders. No one has seen her face clearly, but many have heard her voice. She cries softly in the night. Not wailing, not screaming, but a fragile sound, like a song of grief sung through trembling breath. It carries across the cemetery in waves, rising and falling like wind through branches. Those who hear it are struck by sadness, an unexpected ache deep in the chest, as if the sorrow she carries is shared through sound alone. Something strange happens when pity reaches her. Visitors claim that if you feel sympathy for her, if your heart aches for her pain instead of turning away. If your heart aches for her pain instead of turning away, her voice grows louder. Crying becomes clearer. You can hear her breathing between sobs, hear the strain in her voice like someone begging silently for comfort. She drifts closer in these moments, drawn not by fear but by emotion. A link formed between the grieving and the living. Her sorrow deepens, raw as if freshly broken. Yet if you speak her sorrow aloud, she vanishes. Say words like you must be hurting. Or you are not alone. And she dissolves without warning. The crying stops mid-note. And the space she filled returns to cold quiet. One couple visiting late for photography claimed they heard her behind them. Soft crying, like someone kneeling by a loved one's grave. They turned to see her figure in white, bowed over a stone so old the name could barely be read. The woman felt tears prick her eyes. She whispered sadly, she must have loved someone. At once the crying grew louder, shaking like a heart breaking. The couple stood frozen. When the boyfriend tried to speak kindly, voice gentle with pity, the woman in white vanished into air so thin it felt like breath leaving the world. Another story comes from a caretaker who tended the grounds for decades. He never spoke of ghosts, but one cold night he returned to retrieve tools forgotten earlier. Moonlight lit the cemetery pale blue. As he walked between graves, he heard crying faintly in the distance. He thought perhaps an early visitor lost in grief. But when he called out softly to ask if someone needed help, the crying shifted. It grew louder, almost near him. He turned to see a woman in white moving slowly, back turned. He whispered, "I am Sorry. Your pain. She vanished. Instantly. Only silence remained. Heavy and complete. Locals avoid speaking to her. They watch from distance when she appears, standing among graves like sorrow made into shape. Some believe she grieves a child buried here long ago. Others think she seeks forgiveness or simply mourns life she cannot leave behind. Legends say she was a young bride who lost her love before the wedding and returned night after night, mourning until death claimed her. Her spirit, bound to loss, walks still. Imagine standing there yourself. Night deep, sky scattered with stars barely visible through pine needles. The air cool, heavy with earth and old leaves. You walk the path between headstones, flashlight dim in hand. Every sound feels louder in the quiet. You reach deeper into the cemetery where moonlight falls on an open clearing. Then you hear her. Soft crying, drifting like mist through trees. The sound pulls you forward, gentle but irresistible. You step slowly, careful not to break the moment. There she is, a woman in white near the farthest row of graves. Shoulders hunched in pain, head bowed. The sight fills you with sadness, unexpected and deep. Your heart whispers pity without words. Her cry grows louder, more fragile, trembling like wine through old wood. She stands now, turning slightly though you still cannot see her face. Her sorrow fills the air, pressing against your chest. For a moment you want to comfort her. Words rise in your throat, soft and human. But as you inhale to speak, she flickers like flame in cold wind. A breath later she is gone, leaving only moonlight and stillness. The cemetery feels empty again. Too empty. As if she was never there. You walk back to your car, footsteps soft on pine needles. The gate creaks faintly as you leave. Behind you, deep within the cemetery, a faint cry begins again. Distant. Sad. Endlessly repeating like a heart that cannot stop grieving. Pine Flat Cemetery rests quietly beneath the trees, holding its stories in silence through sunlit days. But when the night deepens and the world grows still, the woman in white returns to wander rows of forgotten names. Her cry soft and aching. Her presence gentle yet heavy with sorrow. Pity draws her closer. Words chase her away. She lingers between worlds, neither gone nor fully here. For those who visit after dark, remember this. If you hear her crying, listen with care. Feel her sadness but do not speak it. Because in Pine Flat Cemetery, sorrow walks on 2 feet, dressed in white, and disappears like breath when named. Cemetery Mountain rises quietly in the Talladega forest, covered in dense pine and oak where sunlight filters like thin gold through branches. Trails wind upward through thick brush, following old logging roads long surrendered to moss and roots. Those who climb high enough eventually find an unexpected clearing, flat and strangely open beneath the canopy. Headstones stand there, weathered and leaning, carved names almost erased by rain and years. No sign marks the cemetery. No path directs you. It sits hidden, waiting to be found only by those who wander far enough. The air around Cemetery Mountain feels different than the forest below. Still, heavier, as if the world holds its breath. Birds sing less often here. Wind hushes as it passes between stones, moving like speech you cannot understand. Some say they feel watched from the moment they step into the clearing, not with malice, but with attention. Like something old remembers visitors and measures their intent. During the day, it is only quiet. Moss blankets forgotten graves, wildflowers grow where families once wept. But when night falls across the mountain, shadows deepen. And the forest speaks in ways no map prepares for. People who camp near the site report hearing wolves calling in the distance. Low howls echo between trees, haunting and long. Yet wildlife experts insist no wolf packs live anywhere near Talladega Forest. Coyotes exist, but their calls are different, sharper, less mournful. What visitors hear sounds ancient, like wolves that belonged to the mountain before graves touched its soil. Breathing space. Let the forest breathe with the story. Hikers often speak of footsteps crunching in leaves at night when no one else should be there. Slow footsteps, measured, as if something moves on two legs rather than four. It circles campsites quietly, remaining just beyond lantern light. No shape appears, no crack of branch reveals direction. Only sound remains, creeping around tents like curiosity made of shadow. One camper shared a story that continues to circulate among locals. He pitched his tent right beside the old cemetery, fascinated by history and drawn by mystery. His fire burned low. Night settled deep into the trees. The forest grew silent enough to hear his own heartbeat. Hours passed in darkness until a distant howl rose through the pines. Long and chilling, it echoed far across mountain slope. He sat up inside his tent, wide awake, listening. Another howl answered closer than before. Then another. Too deep for coyotes. Too real to ignore. He lay still, watching the silhouette of branches against fabric. The sounds of footsteps approached, soft and steady. Leaves brushed gently, as if something tall moved slowly through them. Then came silence, heavy and absolute. He held his breath. Moonlight edged across canvas wall. He saw a shadow stop right outside his tent door. Tall. Still. Watching. Breathing space. Let the moment linger. The camper stared frozen at the faint shape. Two glowing points appeared within the shadow, pale like distant lanterns. Eyes stared through canvas with unnatural steadiness. Not bright enough to illuminate, yet bright enough to paralyze. The eyes lingered for a long moment, unblinking. Then footsteps moved again, slow retreat into trees. The howls faded afterward, one by one, until the forest was silent once more. Morning came with warm light and birdsong. When the camper stepped outside, he found no tracks in the earth. Only dew on grass and disturbed leaves where something had stood. The cemetery stones watched quietly, as if nothing happened. But he knew what he saw. Shadow with glowing eyes. Tall and watching. Breathing space. Other hikers reported similar sightings. Not always close. Sometimes only eyes in distance between trees. Reflecting faint moonlight where no animal should stand. Shapes tall as men but impossible to describe. They vanish when approached, leaving only cold patches in the air where warmth should remain. A group of night hikers once decided to explore Cemetery Mountain under full moon. Their flashlights caught mist low along the ground, curling like smoke around gravestones. They felt presence immediately, like multiple unseen figures gathering near. Wolves howled from slopes below though none lived there. One hiker felt tug on her backpack, gentle but firm enough to pull her half-step backward. She turned quickly, expecting a friend behind. No one stood close. Her group formed tight circle. Until dawn broke. And mist lifted with the sun. Breathing space. Some believe Cemetery Mountain holds spirits of those buried without family to tend graves. Others think an older presence guards the grounds, a sentinel born from forest, watching those who trespass after dark. Local hunters say shapes move differently there. Not like deer or bear or man. Something between. Something patient. Imagine standing in that clearing at night. The world around you black and endless. The world around you black and endless. Tombstones pale against moonlight. Wind moves through upper branches but not at your feet, as if the cemetery sits inside a pocket of stillness. Then a distant howl rises, long and sorrowful, drifting closer. You turn slowly. Something moves between trunks. Tall shadow. Eyes pale and steady. Watching without sound. You want to speak but breath stays lodged in your throat. When you blink, the shadow fades deeper into woods. The eyes remain a moment longer, then vanish like light swallowed by night. The mountain graveyard remains untouched by time, hidden within Talladega Forest like a secret not meant for casual hikers. It is peaceful by day but unsettled by night. Those who return speak of feeling lingered upon, as if something followed behind them until trail met open road. Some swear they heard footsteps behind them the entire descent, stopping only when headlights reached parking lot below. Cemetery Mountain keeps its stories close. The wolves that are not wolves. The footsteps with no source. The shadow that waits outside tent doors, eyes glowing with ancient patience. If you ever climb high enough to find the hidden cemetery, tread with respect. Sit quietly among stones and listen. You may hear howls drifting through trees though no pack roams these hills. And if night falls while you remain, keep fire bright, keep voice steady. For when silence thickens and shadow stands at your door, glowing eyes fixed like memory, you will feel what others felt. That something old still roams Cemetery Mountain, watching those who walk among its forgotten dead. Glenwood Cemetery sits on a quiet hill above Fort Payne, Alabama. Iron gates open to winding paths, lined with oaks that move gently in the wind. Sunlight filters through branches by day, scattered across marble and granite stones polished smooth with age. It is peaceful in daylight, a place of reflection where history rests in silence. But Glenwood changes as the sun lowers. Locals whisper that the statues here watch the living. Angels carved from white stone stand tall over graves, hands folded in prayer or reaching toward sky. Their faces look calm, gentle even. But as dusk approaches, expressions soften in ways too subtle to capture on camera. Visitors have returned to statues minutes later only to swear the expression has shifted entirely, as though stone breathes emotion. One statue in particular draws attention: a tall angel with wings spread like feathers frozen mid-flight. By day her gaze lowers toward the grave she guards, sorrow written in the curve of her mouth. Yet at sunset tourists have seen her lips curl slightly upward, as if peace washes over her. And by midnight, those same stone lips hold grief again, lines deepened, eyes heavy with mourning. It is said she wears the emotions of the living who walk nearby. The most unsettling account involves a visitor who arrived late one autumn evening. He came to photograph headstones glowing orange beneath fading light. He snapped a picture and reviewed it on his camera. When he looked back up, she was staring directly at him. A shift so impossible he froze where he stood. The Angela's face pointed forward, no longer downward. Her eyes met his, carved stone unblinking. Her mouth no longer held sorrow or peace, it held a faint, knowing expression. Not threatening. Not warm. Simply aware. He stepped back slowly, breath catching in throat. The grave behind her held no sign of disturbance, no movement. Only the statue had changed. He left without taking another picture. Some say this never happened, that tricks of shadow and fear shape memory. But the visitor insists the statue moved, not physically, but subtly, like shifting attention. Others describe smaller changes. A statue of a child once carved with soft smile. One marble woman, hands folded at her waist, appears to raise them near her heart. Photographs rarely capture these moments. Cameras show stone frozen in its original pose. But to the eyes, especially at dusk, the change feels undeniable. Cemeteries often stir imagination. Yet Glenwood carries something different, a sense that grief breathes through the ground itself. Names carved on headstones date back generations. Children. Soldiers. Families who lived and died in this small Alabama town. Perhaps memory lingers in stone the way wind lingers in leaves, always moving, never leaving entirely. Imagine walking the winding path near twilight. Crickets sing. A cold breeze rises from nowhere. Shadows lengthen across graves, stretching thin like fingers. You pause before a tall angel statue. The carving is flawless, wings feathered with delicate grooves. Her eyes seem soft as marble allows. You take a few steps, glance back, and something feels different. Her lips seem parted slightly, like breath almost forming. You tell yourself light plays tricks. You continue through cemetery, footsteps crunching gravel. As darkness deepens, you feel watched. Not followed. Not threatened. Simply observed. A presence as still as stone but attentive as silence. You swallow, unsure when she turned. But statues cannot turn. You blink hard, step closer, heart racing in quiet rhythm. The Angela's eyes no longer lower in sorrow. They hold focus, carved pupils aligned with where you stand. The air grows colder. Leaves hush. Then nothing moves. Yet the sense remains as she sees you. Tourists report hearing faint whispers late at night, as if prayers from long ago return through air. Some hear footsteps on path though no one stands nearby. Others feel pressure of unseen company beside them, gentle as if someone once loved here still walks the grounds. Not frightening. More like a reminder that life echoes long after last breath. One woman visiting her great-grandmother's grave felt a hand rest lightly on her shoulder though she stood alone. She turned frightened. But instead of fear she felt comfort settle through her like warmth after winter. The angel statue nearest to her, once expressionless, now seemed to smile with tender calm. When she looked away and back again, the smile softened to grief once more. No one lives here, yet the cemetery lives. Fog rolls through Glenwood like low river, curling around statues and stones. Under moon, wings carved from cold marble glow faintly, as if light breathes from within. Owls watch from branches high above. The world is silent but far from empty. Something remains awake. If you visit in day, you may notice nothing unusual. Only history resting peacefully. But return in evening and watch the statues closely. Expressions shift so gradually you cannot tell when it began. A frown lifting. A smile fading. Eyes once cast downward now meeting horizon. As if stone remembers emotion. As if the dead quietly speak through stillness. Stand before the angel at midnight and wait. You may feel her presence like weight on air. You may see sorrow deepen into grief or soften to compassion. And if you turn away, even for a second, she may watch you when you look back. Glenwood Cemetery holds countless stories in quiet earth. Statues carved to mourn seem to breathe like living guardians. Their expressions change with time, with light, with those who stand nearby. Some say angels protect this place. Others believe they simply remember. So if you ever walk there at sunset, take your time. Watch the stone faces gently shift their mood. And if an angel ever looks back at you, know you have witnessed Glenwood's quiet secret. That statues carved to honor the dead may still notice the living. Greenwood Cemetery in Montgomery stretches wide under old southern skies. Marble markers lean with age. Iron gates rust quietly. Oak trees drape Spanish moss like curtains of silver green that sway gently when wind brushes through. In the morning it is peaceful. Sunlight warms stone, and the world feels still. But as evening sets and shadows grow long across the grass, something seems to wake. A quiet electricity enters the air. Not dangerous, but strange. People walking near the older plots have seen lights flicker softly between the graves. Blue and faint as fireflies, though no source of power exists there. The glow pulses like breath, sometimes near, sometimes far, as if wandering. Locals whisper that those lights mark where spirits gather, where memories refuse to settle. Visitors describe seeing the glow drift from one headstone to the next, hovering, then vanishing when approached. Yet the cemetery holds more than floating light. Among the stories that echo here, one stands apart. It begins with the boy. Those who come at dusk sometimes see him. A small figure running between graves, chasing a ball that never bounces too loud. He looks no older than 8, dressed in simple clothes from another time. He runs with joy, weaving through stones with the carefree spirit only a child can carry. His laughter is soft, like a breeze through leaves. For a moment it is easy to forget where you stand, watching a scene that feels alive and innocent against the weight of death around it. One man visiting late one night saw the boy clearly. Mist hung low over the grass, lantern in hand. He walked slowly, the path narrow beneath his feet. Something rolled in front of him then, light as paper. A ball. Pale and worn. It stopped just a few feet away. Before he could react, the boy dashed from behind a tall angel statue, grabbing the ball with both hands. He smiled without noticing the man. Then he ran again, vanishing between stones, only to appear moments later chasing the ball once more. The man called out gently, but the boy did not turn. Instead, when he heard a voice, he stopped, froze as though someone had pressed pause. Slowly he lifted his head. A smile spread across his face, too calm, too still. Then he faded into the fog. The ball rolled to a stop. And everything fell silent. Others tell similar experiences. A couple walking the cemetery heard laughter and thought a child had wandered in after hours. They followed the sound, calling softly. Soon they saw him running near a row of family stones, chasing something invisible this time. He giggled, darted behind a mausoleum, and disappeared. They saw no footprints where he ran. The air shimmered faintly, as if breath of the past lingered long enough to be seen. Often the strange blue light appears around the same time, as though leading them to places they might not otherwise walk. Near the older graves, the boy plays. Some believe he belonged to a family buried here, taken young by illness in a time when medicine offered little comfort. Others think he may have lived nearby, visiting friends and never returned home. There is sadness in those guesses, yet when he is seen, sadness is not what people feel first. They feel wonder. A quiet beauty. A child still laughing. As though unaware of death at all. But the moment someone calls to him, everything changes. Witnesses say he freezes mid-step, ball held close. Slowly he turns his head. His smile grows still, like a photograph coming to life. And then he fades. Soft as breath. Fog rolls where he once stood. A chill settles, light but undeniable. Some say if you listen closely after he vanishes, you can hear faint footsteps running farther into the shadows, as if he continues the game elsewhere, unseen. The cemetery itself plays its part. Trees rustle in windless moments. Names whisper in leaves. Gravel pathways sometimes shift underfoot with no animal nearby. At times people walking alone feel they are not alone at all, though not threatened. Watched, gently, like someone curious. One woman visiting an ancestor's grave at twilight brought flowers and sat quietly to speak her thoughts. As she stood to leave, she heard a soft bouncing behind her. She turned and saw the boy a few yards away. He rolled the ball slow, almost offering it. She hesitated. The moment she said hello, the boy looked up, smiled wide and vanished. The ball dissolved into mist like chalk in rain. Only blue light flickered between headstones after. Moving like a wandering spirit. Day breaks differently here. Morning light washes away mystery. Birds settle in branches overhead, singing with confidence. The cemetery returns to gentle stillness. Groundskeepers rake leaves. Families visit graves with fresh flowers. No trace of the child remains. Only stories told between generations. Greenwood Cemetery holds history carved in marble and memory written in wind. Past lives soften into legend, yet some voices linger. Some footsteps continue playing across dew-covered grass. When night returns and fog drifts low, those willing to walk by lantern or moonlight may see the blue glow dance. They may hear soft laughter echo like distant bells. And if they look closely, they may see a boy near the headstones, smiling as he chases his ball. He runs freely beneath moss-draped trees as though time never claimed him. But do not call to him. Let him play. Let him remain unbroken by attention. For the moment eyes meet and voice reaches, he freezes like a memory caught between worlds. Then he fades into fog once more, leaving only silence, only mystery, only blue light drifting through night. In Greenwood Cemetery the past moves gently, playful and strange. And a child, somewhere beyond the living world, still chases his ball through the dark. Friendship Cemetery in Columbus is old in a way few places are. Time has settled deep into its soil, and history sleeps beneath grass worn smooth by decades of footsteps. Iron gates hold stories of wars, love, and grief. Marble stones tilt with age, names faded by rain and wind. Some markers lean like tired shoulders, while others stand tall though moss clings to them like memory that refuses to let go. When the breeze moves through the drooping oaks, Spanish moss sways and rustles, whispering names that no one alive remembers anymore. Daylight paints this place softly. Sunbeams find their way through heavy branches, scattering gold across statues and unmarked graves. Visitors leave flowers on stones that belong to strangers long gone, gestures of remembrance shared across generations. But when the sun falls and the moon rises silver and cold, the character of Friendship Cemetery changes. It becomes a place where silence feels alive. The wind carries a hush like the breath of the past leaning close. Local legends say that on certain nights, faint music drifts through the cemetery. Notes soft as moss, slow like waltzes once played in distant ballrooms. If the moon hangs full, the stories say something even stranger happens. Ghosts dance among the tombstones, dressed in old gowns torn by time, swirling as though eternity itself holds the rhythm. No footsteps mark the ground, no voices break the air, only movement shaped from moonlight and memory. These ghostly figures appear in groups or pairs. Women in gowns that sweep the grass like whispering silk. Men in suits from centuries past, hats or coats fading like mist around shoulders. They move as if music fills the air though none can hear its source. Waltzing. Turning. Hand in hand with partners who lived and died long before the modern world touched this town. Their clothing flows like ripples in water. Yet no one has ever seen them clearly. Look directly and they seem to dim like light behind fog. Watch from the corner of your eye, and they move with grace impossible to deny. One story tells of a young couple who walked through the gates after a late dinner. The night was warm, moon bright enough to see without a flashlight. They strolled between graves, reading names, speaking quietly. Then they noticed movement near the old oak in the center. A woman in a pale gown twirled slowly, skirt blooming like a flower in wind. Her partner, a tall figure in dark coat, followed her motion in perfect rhythm. When the woman tried to speak, the figures faded instantly. Another account comes from a groundskeeper who locked the gates each evening. He swore he never believed in spirits until one late night when he returned to retrieve forgotten tools. As he stepped into the cemetery, lantern in hand, he heard faint music. Not loud, but unmistakable, like distant strings playing from beyond the trees. He followed the sound to a clearing where moonlight spread across marble. There he saw silhouettes gliding among graves. One figure turned toward him, though eyes never showed. The dancers faded into the moonlight, leaving empty space and stillness. Some believe these ghosts once attended lavish balls before war or illness claimed them. Others say they were lovers separated by time, now reunited only in death under moonlit skies. A few imagine the cemetery itself remembers joy shared by the living long ago, replaying it on nights when moonlight warms old stone. Whatever the truth, footsteps have been heard on gravel paths, though no one walks them. Dresses rustle though ground is still. Laughter like silver echoes with no source at all. Imagine standing there yourself. You push open the gate as night deepens around you. Air cools, brushing your skin like soft fingertips. Moonlight spills across marble markers, turning each stone into pale reflection. You walk slowly down the main path, feeling stillness settle like gentle weight. The moss whispers overhead, branches swaying in slow rhythm. You breathe deeply, tasting earth and time on the air. Far ahead, something shifts. A faint shimmer near the old oak draws your eye. Two figures begin to take shape, pale at first, then clearer as moonlight brightens. A woman in a flowing gown glides across grass, fabric moving with grace no wind commands. A partner steps beside her, arm extended as though offering a dance. Their motions are smooth, elegant, effortlessly old. You hear no music, yet they move to a rhythm you somehow feel. More figures appear around them, pairs spinning quietly through the yard. Gowns trail softly. Coats swirl. Their presence feels neither threatening nor sad, but nostalgic. Beautiful. You watch from a respectful distance, afraid a single word might break the spell. Their faces remain distant, never fully formed, like memories half recalled. Their gowns seem torn at edges, frayed by eternity, yet still stunning in the pale light. You feel a pull, gentle as curiosity, to step closer. But as you do, one dancer pauses. She turns her head slightly, as though sensing your gaze. The movement is slow, deliberate. Moonlight catches her outline. For a beat, everything stops. The dancers fade, becoming mist, silhouettes thinning like fog when dawn arrives. Within seconds, nothing remains except quiet stones, long shadows, and the soft sound of moss shifting in the breeze. You stand alone once more. Friendship Cemetery holds peace in daylight and wonder in the dark. Where history steps lightly through grass when the moon is high. Some say the ghosts return to revisit nights of joy, waltzing through eternity. Others believe they dance to be remembered, even briefly, by those who wander beneath oak and starlight. If you visit on a moonlit night, listen closely. You may hear faint music without instruments. You may glimpse movement where no living feet walk. And if you are quiet, if you stand still enough to feel the air shift, You might witness the dancers yourself swirling among the tombstones. In gowns torn by centuries. Dancing softly in the place memory never sleeps. Moody Cemetery rests quietly beyond the tree line, where rural roads fade into dirt, and night settles heavy as fog. The grass grows uneven between old markers, some standing proud, others sinking into soil, as if being swallowed by time. Iron fences rust at corners, their gates hanging slightly crooked, forever half open like an invitation no one asked for. In daylight, it appears ordinary enough, a small resting ground for families long gone. Yet after dark it feels alive in ways that cannot be explained. The moon rarely shines clearly here. Clouds drift too often, pulled across sky like curtains closing over a stage. Owls call from distant branches and the wind whistles through weeds with a sound too soft for comfort. Anyone who enters after sunset is greeted first by silence, deep and engulfing. But it does not last. Eventually, footsteps begin. Not your own. Not echo. Footsteps behind you, following step for step. Walk fast, and the footsteps hurry. Slow down, they remain steady at your back. Many swear they felt breath colder than night brushed the back of their necks, as if someone leaned in close just to exhale. The feeling sends chills across skin deeper than any winter wind. Visitors tell stories of stopping abruptly to catch whoever trails them. When they freeze in place, the footsteps do not stop. They continue forward, moving around them and past. Gravel crunches where no person stands. Leaves scatter as if kicked by unseen feet. The sound passes inches away, crossing the path ahead, fading slowly into darkness as though a figure walks through the cemetery continuing on some endless route. Some who experience it say they feel brushed lightly by movement. A pocket of cold air glides across arms. Something like fingertips just barely grazing clothing. Enough to raise goosebumps. Enough to convince them they are not alone. Breathing space. Moody Cemetery has no famous legend tied to great tragedy. No single story to explain its whispering presence. Instead, history lives here quietly, layer upon layer of lives remembered only by etched stone. Some believe those laid to rest never fully left. Others think the land holds memory older than names carved into granite. Footsteps of unseen visitors may simply be those who walk paths they once knew, repeating night after night under the cover of darkness. One man claimed he visited the cemetery on a dare. Armed with flashlight and bold talk, he crossed the gate just past midnight, determined to prove nothing strange lived here. At first the night was calm, only the crunch of his boots and distant insects humming. Then, halfway across the grounds, he heard another set of steps behind him, soft but precise. He stopped, expecting wind or animal. The footsteps continued without hesitation, passing him and crossing directly in front, though no shadow disturbed the beam of his light. The man felt air cool around him in a sudden pocket. It brushed his cheek like the draft of someone walking past. He ran back toward the gate. But the footsteps followed close, almost overlapping his own. Only when he reached the road did the sound vanish, leaving night silent once more. Breathing space, drawing deeper into atmosphere. Another visitor recalled entering alone just to explore graves at dusk. As sky darkened to deep blue, she walked between stones, tracing dates from centuries past. Something about the cemetery felt watchful but calm at first. Then she heard footsteps just behind her, matching pace exactly. She turned quickly. No one stood there. She stepped forward. The sound returned. She stopped. Footsteps kept moving, circling her to the right. They brushed so close she felt cold wind against her ear like breath. She whispered a soft apology and left slow, back toward the entrance. The footsteps remained behind her until her hand touched the gate, then fell silent. Breathing space. People who come here in groups often report same phenomenon. 2 or 3 walking together hear a fourth set of steps that does not belong to any of them. If one stops, so does the unknown walker. If all stop, footsteps continue a moment longer, trailing off into darkness with unnerving independence. Dogs brought to the cemetery grow tense, ears up, staring at empty pathways. Some refuse to cross the gate at all, whining until led away. Legend has grown from these stories, unwritten but passed through whispers. It says those buried here walk when the living disturb their rest. They do not chase. Do not harm. They simply follow, reminding visitors that night belongs to them. The living are guests, and guests should tread respectfully. Breathing space, allow imagination. Picture yourself stepping through rusted gate under a moon half hidden by clouds. The earth smells of damp leaves and iron. The glint of stone names, some cracked by time. You walk deeper among graves. Something about the silence feels too complete, as if waiting to be broken. Then you hear it, one soft step behind you, then another. Slow. Precise. You turn. Nothing moves. Trees sway gently but no figure stands on path. You take another step. Footsteps answer behind you, same pace, same weight. You walk faster. They hurry. You stop. They continue past your right side, brushing close enough to feel cold air move across your sleeve. You hold breath. Footsteps fade ahead, yet your light shows only grass and graves. You stand still, listening. Wind picks up, but footsteps do not return. You decide to leave. As you walk back, you hear faint steps following again, steady at your heels. Only when you step outside the boundary of the cemetery does the sound dissolve like mist, leaving only night and your racing pulse. Breathing space, calm closing. Moody cemetery is not loud with ghosts. It whispers with presence. Footsteps follow those who wander after dark, walking histories that refuse to sleep. Cold breath grazes skin, unseen companions pass close enough to feel but never see. Whether spirits guard ground or simply walk familiar paths, no one knows for certain. But if you enter Moody Cemetery beneath moon and cloud, expect company. You may hear a second rhythm of steps beside your own. And when you stop and footsteps continue without you, passing by in chill air, you will understand why those who visit rarely stay long. Some cemeteries hold memories. This one walks with them. Prattville Cemetery sits just outside the quiet town, where oak branches stretch overhead like guardians of time. Where oak branches stretch overhead like guardians of time. The ground here is uneven, dotted with gravestones old enough that names have begun to fade. Some graves sink so deeply into the earth that grass grows like a gentle blanket over their edges, as if something below shifted, pushed, settled again. Locals say the soil never rests. The cemetery breathes with memory. By day the place feels peaceful, sunlight spilling across white marble and weathered granite. By day the place feels peaceful, sunlight spilling across white marble and weathered granite. Birds perch on iron fences, singing softly. Families arrive to leave flowers, kneel, and whisper their thoughts to the past. But as evening approaches, shadows slip between the headstones. The breeze slows. The world grows still, as though listening for footfalls that no living person makes. Caretakers know these grounds well. One man, known for tending the cemetery alone most mornings, once told a story he never forgot. He came just after sunrise to trim grass around the older plots. Dew sparkled across the earth, and the scent of fresh soil rose with each sweep of his blade. As he worked, he began to hear humming behind him, a quiet tune, delicate as a lullaby. He assumed another worker had arrived. Yet when he turned, no one stood there. The humming continued for a moment, right behind his ear, close enough his skin prickled. Startled, he stepped away, looking around the cemetery. Empty. Only gravestones, still and silent. But then he noticed something more impossible. The flowers beside him, old bouquets placed days earlier, were wet, as if freshly watered. Droplets still clung to petals like morning tears. No clouds had passed. No sprinklers touched this area. Someone, or something, had tended the flowers. He left his tools and walked to the gate, heart shaking in a strange mix of awe and fear. Visitors who come during twilight often describe small things happening around them. Fresh soil turned near graves without shovel marks. Leaves swept into neat piles though wind had blown wildly minutes earlier. A bouquet placed on a grave thought forgotten, now tied with ribbon no one brought. Not destructive acts, but gestures quiet and caring, like hands still watch over loved ones long buried. Some tell of hearing footsteps follow closely, soft and measured, never overtaking. When they stop walking, the footsteps continue 2 or 3 more paces, then fade. Others pause to listen and catch the faint sound of humming drifting between rows of headstones, in no words, only tune, gentle as if someone once comforted a child or sang while working. On foggy nights the cemetery transforms. Mist clings low to ground, curling around graves like slow-moving rivers. Statues appear half-hidden, stone angels rising from white haze. In those moments, even whisper of wind sounds like voice. A few brave souls wander through, drawn by curiosity. One woman visiting her grandfather's grave felt the presence clearly. She sat on cool grass and brushed dirt from the carved stone. Tears came quietly, memories washing through her like tide. Then she heard humming, a soft, soothing, familiar somehow. She looked up and saw no one. Yet she felt calm settle into her chest, grief easing like weight lifted. When she wiped her eyes and prepared to leave, she noticed fresh water pooled around the flowers she had placed earlier, though the bottle she carried remained full. Someone had tended the offering for her. Legends say Prattville Cemetery is tended not just by caretakers, but by spirits who refuse to let neglect take hold. Some believe a beloved groundskeeper who passed decades ago still walks the rows, pruning, watering, humming to himself out of habit. Others think families long gone return to care for graves of those they once knew. The humming could be an echo of those gentle rituals, a song carried through soil, rising like memory through cracked stone. Imagine visiting alone at dusk. The light fades to gold, casting long shadows across tilted markers. You walk slowly, shoes brushing fallen leaves. Air cools against skin. Somewhere close, humming begins, barely audible at first. You turn your head. Nothing stirs. You continue, but the humming follows, warm and steady. You pause before a sinking grave where flowers lie wilted and dry, petals browned. In the blink of an eye a droplet forms on one petal, then another, as if rain falls only there. A moment later, the bouquet looks revived, vibrant once more. You feel the sensation of another presence, not something dark, but something ancient and gentle. You know you stand not alone, but among generations who still hold love in their quiet rest. The humming grows louder for a breath, wrapping around you like memory. Then fades again, carried on breeze down through the rows. Prattville Cemetery remains still to the eye, yet full of quiet movement felt only in subtle ways. As though time never truly freezes here. Of earth slowly settling over time, as if those resting continue to shift under soft soil. As though time never truly freezes here. Visitors who come with respect leave with wonder. Some never hear humming, never see water appear on flowers. They feel only peace, as though history holds them gently before releasing them back to world beyond gate. Others witness small miracles: a petals revived, grass trimmed by unseen hands, song echoing across headstones. If you walk there someday, stop and listen. Let silence settle into your bones. You may catch that faint tune, a lullaby without words, drifting like memory through the air. You may turn and see no one. But the flowers beside you will shine with fresh dew, tended by hands you cannot see. Prattville Cemetery rests in quiet dignity, watched over by more than caretakers alone. Beneath old oak branches and sinking stones, something hums softly still, caring for the dead and comforting the living, one gentle note at a time. Harrison Cemetery rests at the edge of a quiet rural town, where gravel roads stretch beneath wide country sky, and tall pines whisper with every breeze. The cemetery itself holds an old, solemn beauty. Iron gates stand worn yet sturdy, and moss clings to pale stones carved generations ago. During the day you might hear birds calling from the branches, or see families tending graves with fresh flowers and soft voices. But when dusk falls and colors fade to gray, the atmosphere shifts. The air cools. Shadows lengthen. And those who know the stories walk lightly, careful not to disturb whatever awakens with night. People speak of one presence above all others here. Not soldiers, not figures drifting between trees, but a child. A girl, small and pale, always seen near the same grave deep in the older section of the cemetery. She appears to be sitting on the ground, knees drawn up, as if reading from something held in her hands. Yet those who see her swear no book exists. Her fingers turn imaginary pages, her lips move softly, and she reads aloud to someone only she can see. Most accounts describe her as no more than 9 or 10 years old, dressed in simple clothing from a time long past. Moonlight seems to pass through her like mist, leaving her edges soft and unreal. If you stand far away she appears almost peaceful, as though keeping company with the one who rests beneath the stone. Sometimes visitors watch for several minutes as she reads silently into the night. The moment they move closer everything changes. Approach too near and the child lifts her head. Slowly. As if hearing footsteps through the layers that separate her world from ours. Her eyes meet yours then, wide and hollow, void of reflection. No color. No recognition. Only 2 empty windows staring without emotion. She does not speak when noticed. She simply watches. For some, this is the moment fear reaches the bones. Others describe something sad in her gaze, as though she remembers the living but cannot join them. Then, as quickly as frost melts beneath sunlight, she vanishes. No running. No fading slowly. One moment present, the next gone, leaving behind a sudden coldness in the air. Many who have encountered her say the temperature drops sharply when she disappears. Breath becomes visible even in warm months. The grass where she sat sways slightly as if disturbed by movement that never touched the ground. And the silence that follows carries weight, like a held breath. Stories of the girl go back decades. Some believe she was buried there after illness, taken too soon in a time before modern medicine. Others claim she died waiting for her father to return from war. A more poetic legend suggests she was never buried at all, but comes to read to the grave of someone she loved, keeping them company through the years. Whatever the truth, her presence lingers like a memory too strong to fade. One man visiting distant relatives' graves at twilight told how he saw her first. He noticed pale movement near the back corner of the cemetery, where older stones leaned against time. Curious, he approached slowly. The girl sat with her head bent, lips forming soundless words. Her hands cupped something invisible on her lap, turning pages no book contained. He took one step closer. Then another. She raised her head. Their eyes met. He froze, heart hammering. Her stare pierced him like winter wind. Then she vanished. A chill swept across his face and he stumbled back, breath clouding in air that should have been warm. He left without looking behind. Others have watched from a distance rather than approach. One couple visiting late in the evening sat on a bench under an oak tree and noticed the girl appear near a grave marked only by initials. She sat for nearly 10 minutes, head tilting as she gently mouthed unheard words. They remained silent, afraid to disturb her. A soft breeze blew, stirring leaves. She paused, turned slightly as if listening for someone. Then dissolved like mist. Where she sat, the grass shivered though no wind touched it. Sometimes faint sounds accompany her presence. The quiet murmur of a childa's voice. A soft hum like a lullaby remembered only half. Footsteps far too light to be adult. Once, a caretaker walking the grounds at night to check fences heard whispering near the oldest stones. He thought someone had trespassed and approached carefully. Instead he found only a cold patch of air and the faint impression of small knees pressed into dirt. As he turned to leave, he felt eyes on him. When he glanced back, a pale shape stood by the gravestone. Then it vanished. Before he could blink. This is the last moment of the scene. It vanished. Visitors who come seeking thrills often find humility instead. Something about the cemetery invites reflection more than fear. Branches hang low over forgotten markers. Crickets fall silent when the girl appears. The night seems to hold its breath, respecting whatever ties keep her here. Those who witness her rarely return unchanged. They speak softer of life afterward, aware that time is fragile and memory deep. None describe harm. No chase. No anger. A child reads to someone no longer living, or perhaps to herself, filling endless night with words lost to the wind. Daylight wipes the scene clean. Dew glistens on grass. The cemetery stands ordinary once more. There is no child among the stones. Only carved names, wilted flowers, quiet and familiar. Yet deep in the soil, deep in memory, the girl remains. As dusk returns she may appear again, sitting with knees tucked beneath her pale dress, lips moving silently over pages unseen. If you ever walk the grounds of Harrison Cemetery after dark, follow the path toward the oldest graves. Move slow. Listen for the soft whisper of breath or the hush of pages turning where no book rests. You might see her seated beside a stone, reading to the night. Stand still and watch. Do not speak. Let her finish her silent story. But if she looks up and those empty eyes meet yours, do not step closer. She will fade into cold air, leaving only silence, only the sway of grass where she once sat. And you will carry the memory of that moment long after leaving the gates. A reminder that some spirits do not wander for fear or haunting, but out of longing, duty, or love that time could not erase. Elias Church Cemetery sits quiet among trees that bend like watchful sentinels. The old chapel nearby has long since closed its doors, boards bleached and cracked with time, windows fogged by dust and years of weather. Moss spreads across gravestones as though nature tries to soften history, covering dates so worn they are barely readable. Under the sun it feels peaceful, a place where families once gathered to honor those who came before them. But when twilight settles and shadows stretch across the earth, something else wakes in the hollowed silence. Visitors have walked the pathways at night and heard voices speak scripture where no living tongue moves. Words roll like soft sermons through empty air. Not loud. Not clear. Yet each syllable carries weight, as if spoken by unseen preachers standing in aisles long forgotten. Some describe the tone as gentle and solemn, while others insist it shakes the soul like thunder tucked inside a whisper. Regardless, the voices come without warning, rising near gravestones, echoing between trees, and vanishing just as quickly. No one has seen the speakers. The cemetery paths twist between rows of headstones, their lines uneven like pages of a book written by time. Lantern light or moonlight glimmers against marble, casting pale reflections and stretching shadows long. The sound of scripture begins like distant conversation, then grow nearer until the words feel close enough to touch. Those who freeze and listen may catch familiar verses, spoken slowly as though recited for an audience that has not breathed in centuries. Spoken slowly as though recited for an audience that has not breathed in centuries. There are stories of visitors who felt drawn toward the voice, compelled to follow the sound deeper into the cemetery. Their footsteps fall quiet on damp grass, hearts beating slow and heavy. They walk toward the murmur, expecting to find someone praying among the graves. But the closer they get, the more the voice shifts, moving like wind through leaves, impossible to pin to one place. When they reach the center, the voice falls silent, replaced by stillness deeper than night itself. The mystery does not end with voices. Some who wander too far report an overwhelming pressure descending upon them, as though invisible weight presses against their chest. It starts softly, a heaviness like emotion stirring. But for a few it grows stronger, pulling them to their knees. They gasp for breath, hands to ground, feeling as if someone kneels upon them, unseen and heavy. The sensation lasts moments, sometimes longer, before releasing without trace. When they stand, heart racing, the cemetery appears as untouched as before. Only their trembling remains. One hiker passing through late one evening took a shortcut between graves, guided only by moonlight filtering through tree branches. He heard scripture carried on breeze like soft chants. He stopped, searching for a person in the quiet. He walked on, drawn closer by curiosity mixed with something he couldn't name. The voice grew clearer, gentle but old, a tone shaped by time. When he reached the center of the yard, the voice faded. Then weight pressed against his chest. His breath caught. Knees buckled. He collapsed onto damp earth. The pressure felt like someone leaning over him, praying in silent words he could not understand. Just when he thought he might faint, the weight eased. And he crawled back toward the gate. Behind him, scripture rose once more, as if bidding farewell. Another story tells of two friends exploring with cameras. The night was calm, sky cloudless, air thick with summer heat. They walked quietly between graves, reading names with flashlights dimmed to preserve the mood. Suddenly their lights flickered. A voice spoke a single line of scripture from somewhere behind them. Both turned quickly. Nothing stirred except branches shifting under breeze. They walked faster, nervous but curious. The voice returned, louder, echoing off stone. A chill crawled up their arms despite the warm air. One friend felt sudden heaviness pressing on his chest. He gasped, fell to one knee, unable to draw full breath. His companion grabbed him, helping him stand. As soon as they stepped away from a particular row of graves, the pressure vanished. The voice quieted. Their cameras recorded only faint static. Legend suggests the spirits of old pastors remain here, bound by devotion to their flock even after death. Others believe soldiers rested in this ground after war, their prayers still circling through leaves like unanswered vows. Some whisper that the weight pressing upon visitors feels not malicious, but desperate, like souls pleading to be heard. The cemetery holds stories of baptism by candle, weddings under oak branches, funerals where rain fell like a blessing and grief ran deep. Memories cling to the soil like roots, unwilling to fade. Imagine standing there alone. Night deepens around you, crickets falling silent as though they sense something unseen. A whisper rises in distance. Not wind. Not leaves. Words, forming slowly. Scripture spoken with a weight that makes your heart still. You turn your head but see no one. Still the words continue, soft and steady. You walk deeper, drawn without thinking. Each step feels heavier. The sky above seems farther away. You reach the center of the cemetery, an open space where moonlight pools like silver water. Suddenly the scripture stops. Silence rushes in like a wave. Then weight settles on your chest. You inhale sharply, breath shallow. Knees weaken as if someone invisible leans down upon you. Not cruel, but insistent. You grip the edge of a gravestone to steady yourself. The pressure builds, then slowly, gently releases. You stand again, shaken but unharmed. Behind you, the scripture begins once more, softer now, drifting into distance. You leave through the gate feeling watched but not threatened. The cemetery behind you fades into shadow, peaceful once again, as if nothing happened at all. But you know something lingered, something ancient and unseen, reciting words from long before your time. Elias Church Cemetery holds history in every stone, and some voices there refuse to fall silent. Under moonlight, scripture still whispers through the empty pathways. Footsteps stir without bodies to make them. And for those who listen closely, the past speaks with breath not felt, but heard. A place where reverence remains, carried in wind and memory, long past the moment flesh returned to earth. Here, in the quiet grounds of Elias Church Cemetery, the unseen reads aloud. And the living walk carefully, hearts open to the echoes that never fade. Old Live Oak Cemetery in Selma, Alabama sits beneath thick canopies of ancient trees, Spanish moss hanging like silver curtains swaying in the slightest breeze. Marble statues stand among winding pathways, some angelic, some stern, all weathered by years of rain and memory. Their stone eyes look downward, and on humid mornings one may notice streaks of reddish-brown trailing down their faces, like tears that rust through time. Locals say the statues weep on nights heavy with history, when the air feels charged and the past walks quietly between graves. It is a vast place. Sunlight filters through moss and branches, landing in dappled shapes across the worn paths. Names from centuries past rest here, carved into time with graceful letters. History sleeps under every oak, yet not always still. During the day, Old Live Oak is peaceful, though solemn. Visitors wander respectfully, taking in the artistry of monuments and the quiet hum of cicadas. But the earliest hours of morning hold a different story. People walking past the cemetery gate at dawn sometimes see a lone figure on the far path. A man, dressed in old military attire, moving slowly with hat in hand. His stride is steady, reflective, like one deep in thought. He walks toward a particular grave and stops before it, lowering his head. Some claim he raises his hand in a short salute, pauses, then fades into mist as first light stretches across the ground. No one can say with certainty who the figure represents. As though the cemetery remembers a story unfinished. A man once walking his dog at daybreak described passing near the cemetery fence just as the sky turned pale rose. He noticed movement between gravestones. A tall silhouette moved with purpose, coat brushing against silent headstones. The figure removed his hat and bowed slightly before a monument. For a heartbeat the watcher felt something sincere in the motion, as though gratitude or regret lived in the gesture. When he blinked, the figure was gone. Only moss swayed where he stood moments before. Visitors also speak of statues that seem different each time they visit. Some swear the angel figures tilt their faces more downward, as though grieving deeper. Others say rust-streaked tears appear overnight, flowing in thin lines across marble cheeks. Rain may stain stone, yet the pattern resembles sorrow. It leaves people unsettled, as though stone itself remembers what flesh once felt. Breathing space. One evening, near closing hour, a group of tourists wandered too slowly through the grounds. As dusk deepened, the air grew heavy with the smell of wet earth and pine. They approached a statue known for its gentle posture, hands folded as if in prayer. As the last gold light faded, they noticed thin streaks forming under the statue's eyes. Not water, but something darker. Rust, or time, or something that simply looked like grief. The group fell silent. They felt watched, not in menace but in quiet presence, as though stories long buried rose to surface. Another witness recalled hearing faint footsteps during an early morning run along the fence. He turned expecting another jogger, but no one stood on the path. The footsteps continued beside him just beyond the fence line, matching pace. When he glanced through the gate, he caught sight of a figure walking the inner path with slow, dignified stride, hat held to chest. The runner stopped, breath uneven. The figure turned toward a grave and paused. Then dissipated like mist caught in new sunlight. Breathing space, deepen atmosphere. Imagine walking the cemetery at sunrise, when shadows stretch across dewy ground and birds have not yet begun their full chorus. You pass beneath an arch of oaks. The world feels muted, softened, like breathing through cotton. The statues stand tall, cold but expressive. You hear nothing but your own footsteps, then perhaps another set behind, faint and rhythmic. You slow, listening. The footsteps continue, not rushing, simply present. You look ahead. A man walks with hat hanging at his side, shoulders straight, gaze fixed on a monument among moss. You stand still, unsure whether to call out or step back. He reaches the grave and lifts his hand to his brow. A salute formed with grace. Morning light spreads across the cemetery and touches him. In that touch, he fades softly, dissolving into pale gold. Breathing space. What draws him here? Is it duty unfinished, or love of home now quiet? Maybe he returns not in unrest but in respect, honoring a life remembered by soil and stone. Some believe the statues weep because they witness his sorrow. Others think the rust-colored tears mark history gently pleading not to be forgotten. Old Live Oak Cemetery is more than marble and moss. It is memory carved into landscape. Step between its arches of oak and time folds close around you. Hear wind carry whispers through branches, as though retelling stories left behind. Notice statues watching the dawn, eyes hollow yet heavy with feeling. And if morning finds a lone figure walking with hat in hand, let silence honor him. He may walk only until sun rises fully, then rest once more beneath roots and stone. For those who visit, respect comes naturally. Voices fall quiet. Footsteps soften. Within this place history walks, not loudly, but with gentle persistence. Statues weep. Light glimmers across dew. And at the edge of dawn, a soldier returns only long enough to salute what once mattered most. Bluff Park Cemetery rests on a hill where wind drifts softly through grass, shaped by generations of weather and quiet memory. Rows of headstones lie beneath wide Alabama sky, some polished and new, others worn by time until names blur like fading ink. Oaks stand watch along the perimeter, limbs stretching outward like protective arms. Birds nest in their branches by day. But after sundown, those same oaks cast long shadows across the graves. Shadows that sway like silhouettes waiting for dawn. People visit to place flowers and speak softly to stone. Families gather during holidays with gentle reverence. The cemetery appears peaceful, ordinary even, yet something about this land stirs unease. Dogs sense it first. Locals walk their pets along the fence, letting them roam where grass is trimmed and the air smells of pine. Most dogs sniff curiously, trot happily, tails high. But when they near one particular oak tree at the edge of the grounds, their behavior shifts. Ears flatten. Tails droop. They stop abruptly, bodies stiff, staring at the base of that tree with deep unease. Some refuse to move forward. Others whine, backing away with clear fear. No grave marker sits beneath that oak. No plaque. No dates cut into stone. Yet the ground there seems unsettled, soil darker than surrounding earth, like something lies beneath though history never recorded it. After heavy rain, the truth shows itself. Caretakers have found bones pushed upward by swollen earth. Not entire skeletons, just fragments. A jaw here. A rib there. Some appear animal, others strangely shaped, whether too much to identify easily. They rise like secrets from soil, washed free only to vanish again after cleanup. Each time the earth settles smooth once more, and dogs still avoid that same tree weeks later. One groundskeeper, old enough to know most stories, once shared his experience quietly. He walked through cemetery early morning after a storm cleared. Mist hung low across field, clinging to gravestones. Dew glittered like cold tears. As he passed the oak, his dog halted beside him, staring at roots gnarled like clutching fingers. He bent down and carefully brushed away mud. A small fragment revealed itself, a smooth, curved, aged by time. Not from a deer or dog. Something human-sized perhaps, though too old to tell. He reburied it gently and marked spot for removal later. But when he returned with tools that afternoon, the soil had shifted. No prints, no sign of disturbance. Only freshly turned earth and that same oak quietly watching. Stories say the land held burials long before recorded plots were marked. That families once buried their dead near trees, unmarked but remembered, trusting roots to guard their rest. Over generations those memories faded, but the earth does not forget. Rain exposes what time hides. Dogs respond to what eyes miss. Some visitors have felt presence near that tree even without knowing legend. A woman placing flowers on her Mothra-esque grave walked by it one breezy evening. She felt cold brush against her arm though summer night held warmth. Leaves rustled overhead though wind was still everywhere else. She kept walking, but the sense of someone nearby lingered like shadow behind her shoulder. When she turned, seeing nothing but oak and grass, she hurried away, heart beating fast, unable to explain fear that rose without reason. Another man jogging the cemetery path often brought his dog for company. One night he paused to tie his shoe near that oak. His dog began to growl softly, staring at roots as if something moved beneath. The man laughed nervously, patting the dog to calm him. But then he heard a faint sound beneath soil. Rainfall seems to stir activity most. After storms, small hollows appear at base of oak. Bits of bone emerge like history surfacing for breath. Some pieces vanish days later. Others appear where none were seen before. No one claims responsibility. No vandalism reported. Just the earth itself offering glimpses into something buried long ago. Imagine walking there alone near sunset. Sky fades from gold to violet. Tree branches sway though no breeze touches your face. You approach the oak, curiosity stronger than caution. Grass feels damp underfoot. You hear faint rustling, not leaves, but earth shifting softly like someone turning beneath a blanket. You kneel, brushing soil gently with fingertips. The ground feels loose. You find a fragment of bone, smooth and pale against dark mud. You look away only a moment. And when you look back, the bone is gone, leaving shallow impression in earth as if it sank by itself. You stand slowly, backing away, heart steady but alert. Something under that oak wants to remain undisturbed yet unwilling to stay hidden forever. Bluff Park Cemetery keeps its secrets quiet. Bones surface and sink. Dogs sense what human eyes cannot see. Some say lost graves lie beneath that oak, unmarked lives forgotten by records but not by earth. Others whisper that the tree roots hold the remains, drawing them upward as storms feed soil. Spirits connected to those bones may linger still, stirring water, rustling leaves, calling dogs to attention. Not all who visit feel unease. Many walk through fields with peace, admiring old stones and moss-covered statues. But those who stop near the oak understand instantly. Something rests there. Something watches. Something forgotten tries to speak through soil and rain. If you ever visit Bluff Park Cemetery, bring a moment of patience. Walk slowly. Notice where dogs pause. Stand beneath the oak as evening falls. Listen. You may hear faint shifting beneath ground. You may sense presence standing quietly beside you, unseen but close. And after rain, look to the roots. Bones do not rise without reason. History presses upward, asking to be remembered. Dogs know first. People understand only when Earth decides to show them. Little Texas Cemetery sits tucked deep in the countryside, surrounded by fields where cicadas hum and gravel roads fade into quiet trees. In daylight, it appears peaceful. Weathered stones lean into the earth. Iron fences rust under decades of rain and summer heat. Wind moves lazily through the grass. And the world feels still. But once darkness settles, once the sun dips low behind distant oaks, this cemetery becomes something else entirely. A place of warnings. A place where sound carries farther than it should. And where silence feels too attentive, like the night listens for mistakes. Locals speak carefully when they talk about it. They warn newcomers with seriousness in their tone, never as a joke. Do not whistle here. Not ever. No matter how brave you think you are. They say the rule is simple. Whistle once, and a shadow will appear somewhere between the stones. Whistle twice, and footsteps will follow, slow and heavy, drawing closer with each beat. But whistle thrice, and no one knows what follows. Those who did never shared what they saw. Their silence became the final warning. The story begins long ago, when the cemetery was smaller and the surrounding town was young. A group of travelers once rested near the gates, passing time beneath starlight. One of them whistled a tune, light and careless. Moments later a dark shape formed near the far side of the graveyard. At first it looked like a trick of the night, a shadow cast by swaying branches. But it stood too still. It held form even when trees stopped moving. They brushed it off as imagination and whistled again. Footsteps echoed behind them, measured and slow, crunching gravel though no one walked the path. The sound grew closer, deliberate, until fear drove them to leave quickly. They never dared a third whistle. Years passed, but the pattern remained. People who visited late reported seeing the shadow often after one whistle. Not a person. Not an animal. Something darker than the night around it. It did not move, only stood among graves like it waited. Witnesses described its height as tall, shape human but wrong, edges blurred like smoke. Those who tried a second whistle felt their courage drain as footsteps approached from behind. Some said the steps circled them, others heard them rush forward then stop abruptly. As if someone stood just out of view. One man told of a night he went with friends despite the warnings. He claimed bravery, though fear crept in the moment they stepped through the gate. The cemetery was silent, as if all sound paused when they entered. He whistled once. Instantly a figure appeared near a tall cedar tree. A dark outline among pale headstones. His friends begged him to stop, but he whistled again. Footsteps followed. Slow. Dragging. Gravel shifting under invisible weight. They turned every direction but saw no one walking. Yet footsteps moved closer. They ran before anything could reach them, hearts pounding, breath sharp. He never spoke of it with humor again. Another visitor shared a quieter encounter. She walked the grounds to leave flowers for a relative. As she approached the older graves, she heard a soft whistle, not her own. Just a single note. The air shifted cold around her. She turned and saw a shadow near the fence, still and tall. No breeze touched the grass, yet leaves rustled faintly. She left quickly without daring a response. Some believe the shadow belongs to a watchman of old, a caretaker who swore to guard the dead long after his life ended. Others suggest it is something older than the cemetery, drawn to sound, awakened by a whistle that breaks the quiet of its resting place. A few say it is the spirit of a wronged soul buried without peace, listening for the call that brings it closer each time. Whatever the legend, no one disputes the pattern. Whistle once, expect a shadow. Whistle twice, footsteps come. Beyond that, mystery deepens. One pair of brothers once attempted the forbidden third whistle, according to whispers passed through the town. They visited on a moonless night, believing themselves fearless. They whistled once. A figure emerged beyond the graves. They whistled twice. Footsteps surrounded them. The older brother insisted on the third. As he formed the note, the younger turned and ran. He looked back only once. His brother remained standing, pale in the dark, mouth parted around the final whistle. The younger reached the road breathless. He never saw his brother exit the cemetery. No body was ever found. The brother who fled refused to speak of what he saw that night, offering only a single phrase for the rest of his life. Do not whistle at Little Texas Cemetery. Something else happens here besides the shadow. People walking quietly have felt hands brush past their arms like someone passing in a crowd. Some hear murmurs under the sound of insects, voices too low to understand. Others glimpse movement in the corner of vision only to find stones and grass when they turn. Lamps flicker though there is no wind. Air shifts cold even in southern summer. Yet the cemetery lies peaceful under the sun each morning. Grasses sway softly without menace. Birds hop across markers without fear. Names carved in marble catch the light tenderly. No shadow. No footsteps. Everything looks ordinary. But night returns, and so does the rule. If you ever stand beneath those trees after dusk, breathe slow. Notice how the air cools when you step among the graves. You might hear faint movement behind you, soft as a foot brushing earth. You might sense something watching. If curiosity rises, remember the warnings carved by experience. You may feel brave enough to test the tale. To whistle once and see if a shadow forms. To whistle twice and hear approaching footsteps. But think carefully before the third. For at Little Texas Cemetery, sound is an invitation, and some invitations cannot be undone. Magnolia Cemetery in Mobile stands like a living page of history, where time rests thick on the air and the past breathes beneath ancient magnolia trees. The iron gates rise tall and heavy, painted black long ago, now worn into soft rusted edges that glow faint in the sun. Beyond them lie narrow pathways, winding through ornate headstones, marble angels, and mausoleums adorned with carvings of vines and wings. Spanish moss hangs down in silver-green sheets, swaying like curtains that separate the world of the living from the quiet realm below. In daylight the cemetery is solemn but beautiful. Birds call from branches, sunlight flickers through leaves, and warm breezes stir fallen petals across graves. Some stones lean from age, edges rounded by rain, dates carved so deep they remain even after centuries. Others stand tall like monuments of unwavering devotion. Yet beneath the beauty lies something deeper, a heaviness carried by the oldest stones. Stand near them long enough, and some swear they hum. Not with sound heard through ears, but with a low vibration felt in the bones, like sorrow woven into earth itself. When evening descends and shadows gather, lamps from distant streets cast thin orange glow through the trees, flickering against statues that watch with empty eyes. It is during these hours that the stories awaken. Stories of a woman who stands at the iron gates, dressed in a long gown, staring outward as if waiting for someone who never returned. She appears pale beneath moonlight, her dress flowing down to the ground, fabric unmoving no matter how wind pushes through branches. Some describe her gown as white, others as faded gray like ash from memory. Her posture is still, hands resting gently at her sides, shoulders neither slumped nor tense. Yet what unsettles visitors most are her eyes. She never blinks. Never glances. She simply faces outward toward the road beyond the gate, as though expecting footsteps that never come. Some say she is the spirit of a woman who lost her husband to war long ago, her grief so deep she came to the gate every night searching for his return. Her grief so deep she came to the gate every night searching for his return. Century after century, she waits. Witnesses say if you stand behind her quietly, you may feel a coldness rise around you like mist curled over skin. The hum of the old stone seems to fuse with the air then, vibrating softly under your feet. Some claim they hear faint sobbing beneath that hum, low and mournful like memory drifting through time. One evening, a man walking his dog near the gates noticed a figure standing motionless. The moon hung clear, illuminating her outline against the dark of night. Thinking she was a late visitor locked in accidentally, he approached to offer help. But as he neared, his dog whimpered, pulling back on the leash. The woman did not turn. Her gaze fixed outward still. A wave of sorrow washed over him so strong he stopped mid-step. He opened his mouth to speak, but before he could form words, the air flickered like heat in summer. In that flicker she vanished. Not walked away. Not faded slowly. Gone in less than a heartbeat. Another story comes from a pair of students exploring after dark. They entered through the gate with quiet laughter and flashlights aimed at the ground. As they walked deeper among graves, they felt air grow cooler despite the warm night. Leaves rustled though no breeze touched their skin. When they turned back toward the entrance, they saw her standing perfectly still beneath the arch of the gate. The sight silenced them at once. They stood watching, afraid to move. One whispered if she was real. The other reached to take a step closer, but the hum from nearby stones rose like a warning, deep as a distant bell. The student froze. When they looked again, she no longer stood there. Only shadows remained, still and empty. Some believe approaching her too closely causes overwhelming sadness. People report leaving with tears they cannot explain, as though they carried a portion of her grief home with them. Others say if you speak softly near the gate, promising she will see her loved one again, the night warms and the hum softens, as if she hears and hopes for a moment. Now imagine standing there yourself. Night spreads across the cemetery like a dark blanket. The moon glows pale, painting marble statues silver. You move past graves, reading names older than memory. Crickets quiet suddenly. A stillness settles like the world holds its breath. You near the gate and see her there, the lady in the long gown, motionless. Her eyes seem fixed on something far beyond, something you cannot see. She does not blink. She does not breathe, at least not visibly. You draw closer slowly, footsteps soft on earth. The hum starts, low like distant thunder. Your chest tightens with emotion uninvited. She stands inches from you now, but she does not turn. You whisper gently into the quiet, not knowing why, maybe words of comfort or hope. The hum shifts. Softer. Almost tender. You blink once, just a moment, and she is gone. The gate stands empty. The night exhales. You step away, leaving Magnolia Cemetery behind you. But the memory lingers, of a woman waiting at iron gates for someone beyond reach. Of ancient stones humming with sorrow older than living memory. Magnolia Cemetery stands beautiful and heavy with history, where spirits may wander not with anger, but with longing that time has not eased. And somewhere beyond the gate, she may wait still, dressed in her flowing gown. Eyes fixed toward a world that moved on without her. Waiting for the footsteps she never hears. Old Union Cemetery sits tucked behind a line of pines where road turns to gravel and time seems to slip backward. The wrought iron gate stands open more often than not, one hinge rusted enough to hold it still even in wind. Gravestones scatter across the clearing like scattered teeth of history, some tall and proud, others leaning under weight of years. Moss climbs their faces, tracing names half forgotten, and the ground beneath feels soft where roots weave through soil rich with memory. By day, the cemetery is quiet, only birdsong drifting across weathered markers. Sunlight pushes through tree branches and warms stone shoulders of angels watching over generations. But when night falls, the entire atmosphere changes. Darkness gathers thick, almost tangible, as though shadows find comfort here. And through that darkness lantern lights begin to move. The lights drift slowly between headstones. Warm yellow glows that sway with gentle rhythm, rising and dipping like someone walking with lantern in hand. At first glance they seem harmless, even inviting, like trails meant to guide lost souls. People who visit after sunset often stand frozen for a moment, staring in disbelief as 2 or 3 glowing spheres slip along rows of graves without sound. Breathing space. Let the glow take shape in imagination. Witnesses say the lantern lights move with purpose, not wandering like fireflies. They follow old footpaths between stones, pause at certain graves, then glide onward. Some hover near the gate as if waiting for company. It is here most curiosity begins. Those who dare to follow step cautiously into cemetery shadows. Gravel crunches underfoot. The lantern ahead glides deeper, tempting them forward. A few more steps, and the world feels different. Air cools sharply. The lights drift farther away yet remain just close enough to chase. But with every step taken after them, night seems to darken faster than it should. Trees press in, branches knitting overhead until moon disappears. The lantern glows farther away now, deeper than logic allows. One visitor described following a lantern down central path, his flashlight held tight, breath clouding in front of him. The glow floated 20 feet ahead, steady and patient. When he walked faster, it did not fade. But as he followed deeper into graves, he realized everything behind him had vanished. The gate was gone from sight. Even his flashlight seemed weaker, swallowed by darkness thick as fog. His footsteps sounded muffled, as though earth beneath turned soft. He called out once, voice swallowed by night. No answer. Only the lantern, still drifting forward as if urging him on. He hesitated. When he paused, the light dimmed and seemed to wait. The man's instinct screamed to return. He turned around, searching for path home. Behind him stood only endless darkness. No moon. No gate. Just black like ink poured across world. Panic snapped within him. He ran in the direction he thought he came, stumbling over roots. Then the lantern behind flared bright once, then vanished. The man emerged finally near the cemetery edge, breathless, unsure how he found his way back. Breathing space. Others share similar accounts. No one who chases the lights claims to reach their source. They always stop short, turning back only once fear overtakes curiosity. When they return to safety near the gate, the lanterns often reappear behind them, drifting calmly as though nothing happened. Some say the lights flicker once like farewell, then fade into trees. Stories pass over time, whispered among locals. They say lantern bearers may be spirits of those who never found rest, walking paths they walked in life. Others believe they are guardians leading visitors away from something deeper in woods. A few suggest the lights lure wanderers to a place where night stretches longer, darker than anywhere else, a realm not meant for the living. Breathing space. One pair of campers set up tents near tree line, close enough to cemetery to see gate silhouettes. Sometime after midnight, they noticed faint glow moving among headstones. At first only one, then two more appeared, drifting side by side like companions. The lights moved toward back of cemetery then paused. One light separated from group and glided toward them, slow and steady. They stepped away from tent, drawn inexplicably forward. Before long, the glow retreated deeper, encouraging pursuit. They followed until forest swallowed them, losing sight of camp. Their flashlights dimmed. The world around felt wrong, soundless, as though air itself held breath. They turned back, but everything looked unfamiliar. Finally, their flashlights flickered bright again, revealing the cemetery gate behind them though neither remembered turning around. Lanterns shimmered between stones one last time, smaller now, like distant stars. Breathing space. Imagine standing at the gate yourself. The night cool around you. Gravel soft beneath shoes. The trees cast long shadows, and beyond them the cemetery lies silent. Then, gently, a glow appears. Lantern light floats from behind a headstone, golden and soft. Another emerges, then another. They drift like quiet caretakers through the land of rest. Your heart beats steady, pulled forward by pure curiosity. You step inside. The glow guides deeper, path fading behind you. Then suddenly, darkness thickens. The lantern grows smaller ahead, swallowed by a veil of night. You sense the world narrowing. Your breath quickens. You turn to leave. But find only trees where gates should be. Panic prickles through skin. The lantern brightens once as if noticing your fear. Then it fades quietly, leaving night complete and heavy. Somehow, you find your way back, unsure if guided or spared. When you exit, lights appear again behind stones. Peaceful and distant, like they never led you into shadow at all. Breathing space, soft closing. Old Union Cemetery does not shout its secrets. It whispers with light. Lanterns wander gently in darkness, offering mystery to any who dare follow. Some believe they are messages. Some believe they are messages. Others think they are tests. Others think they are tests. Whether guiding spirits or luring shadows, they move with rhythm older than the stones themselves. Whether guiding spirits or luring shadows, they move with rhythm older than the stones themselves. A sense of impending doom and madness hangs in the air. If you visit after dark and see warm glow weaving through graves, watch from distance. Step carefully. Curiosity may pull you deeper. But night here holds corners where light cannot reach. And when lanterns drift beyond sight into dark deeper than night itself, remember that some paths are meant only for those who no longer need the way back. Keener Cemetery sits along a lonely stretch of road, hidden behind tall weeds and leaning fence posts. The land around it is quiet farmland, where cornfields sway in summer heat and frost settles thick in winter stillness. By daylight the cemetery looks simple, old stones scattered across uneven ground. Crosses tilt at uneasy angles, some leaning so far they look as if a hand pushed from below. Grass grows tall in places, swallowing smaller plots until only a curve of marble reveals someone rests beneath. Most pass it without a second look. Yet those who step through the gate say the air changes. Cooler. Still, even when wind stirs the trees outside. And when night arrives, the quiet turns heavy, as if the earth remembers everything buried within it. Keener Cemetery carries stories. Visitors tell of voices beneath the ground. Faint whispers, soft as wind through dry leaves yet unmistakably human. Not loud, not screaming, more like someone speaking from far away through layers of soil. Words cannot be understood, but tone feels desperate, pleading, as though someone buried long ago still tries to finish a final prayer. People kneel, press their ear close to the grass, and swear they hear breath moving below, trapped and restless. Others describe dirt shifting underfoot. Small tremors, so subtle they question if imagination plays tricks. But some nights tremors grow stronger. The soil lifts slightly, then settles again, like something beneath pushes upward trying to rise. No animals dig. No roots shift quick enough to explain. It happens without warning. A mound rises for a heartbeat, then sinks as though held down from below. One man visiting at dusk felt ground pulse beneath him. He stood still, thinking a heavy truck passed nearby, but the road lay empty. Then the tremor came again, directly under the grave where he stood. He stepped back quickly, heart climbing into throat. In that moment he heard faint breathing, slow and steady, rising through layers of dirt. The sound faded when he retreated toward the gate. He has never returned after sundown. Crosses tilt more each year, though caretakers claim they straighten them when they can. Yet by the next visit, the crosses lean again, always toward the same direction, slightly forward, as if pulled by unseen force. Some align perfectly in rows during day, but tilt eerily crooked by morning. It is as though something below presses upward with gentle insistence, shifting markers from their rest. On foggy evenings the place transforms. Mist crawls low across graves, blurring shapes like memories half remembered. Branches overhead rustle though no wind blows. Shadows stretch from bent crosses like reaching arms. A few brave explorers walk row by row, flashlights cutting through haze. They describe hearing whispers that seem to circle them, moving from grave to grave. Never loud enough to form words, but always near. As if spirits hold conversation beneath earth, aware of the living above. There is one story often told by locals. A teenager dared by friends entered the cemetery alone one night. He walked to the oldest grave, a stone cracked down middle, name faded beyond recognition. He stood quiet, waiting to feel something strange. Minutes passed. Then he heard whispering behind him, low and breathy. He spun, seeing no one. The whisper rose again, this time under his feet. The ground trembled lightly. He dropped his flashlight, panic seizing him. As he scrambled to leave, his light flickered across a small mound of soil rising near his path, like something beneath was pushing upward. Then, as quickly as it formed, it deflated, sinking flat. The boy sprinted back to the gate, breath shaking. When his friends asked what happened, he could only say the ground moved. Not like moles or shifting earth, but like something alive. Another visitor, older and calmer, told a gentler story. She visited her grandmother's grave every Sunday afternoon. One evening as sun fell low and birds quieted, she heard soft humming from somewhere near her feet. She placed her hand on cool earth and felt slight vibration, as if a distant voice traveled through ground. It frightened her at first, but soon brought comfort, like someone remembering her presence. She stayed longer that evening than ever before. Not all experiences are unsettling. Some find peace in the whispers, believing loved ones connect through subtle tremors and quiet breath. But for others, the unknown makes the cemetery a place to avoid after dark. Rumors say those who linger too long at night feel cold hands brush their ankles through grass. Others wake in their car to see all crosses leaning toward them more than before, like silent watchers acknowledging their visit. Imagine standing there as midnight approaches. Stars glow above like distant lanterns. The world grows silent except for the occasional cricket calling from weeds. Your breath forms a small cloud in cold air. You walk between graves, soft crunch of leaves beneath feet. The ground feels uneven, spongy in places, like recent rain loosened soil. Then a faint tremor moves through ground beneath your shoes. Not enough to knock you off balance, just enough to notice. You stop. Listen. A whisper rises from dirt, barely audible. You lean closer. The whisper continues, rhythmic like breath rather than speech. A chill crawls your spine. The cross beside you leans slightly forward, pointing downward at the grave it marks. You step back slowly. The ground trembles once more, gentle but deliberate, like someone pushing from below then fading. You walk toward the gate. As you leave, you glance back. In faint moonlight, crosses seem to lean a little more than they did moments ago, bowed forward as though watching you go. Keener Cemetery holds something beneath its soil, a memory, unrest, the echo of lives not fully faded. Crosses tilt as if acknowledging movement below. Voices whisper like wind through roots. Dirt trembles when night grows deep and quiet. Some say the ground is restless because people forgotten lie there without name or prayer. Others believe spirits simply shift, remembering life in darkness. If you ever visit Keener, tread gently. Listen carefully. The earth may speak back. And when the ground stirs beneath your feet, you will understand why this place lingers in local stories. A cemetery where rest does not always mean stillness. And where the earth breathes softly beneath every step. And so, our walk through the haunted cemeteries of Alabama ends. Or perhaps the dead walk with us still. 20 graveyards where footsteps echo without feet. Where angels change expression. Where children laugh among tombstones. Where the past sits heavy on cold stone slabs. If you ever wander into one of these places at night, remember. Cemeteries are quiet not because they are empty, but because the dead listen more than they speak. Thank you for walking beside me tonight. May your room feel safe, may your door stay closed, may no soft voice call your name from the darkness. If you hear footsteps in your hallway after this, do not answer. The dead love attention. Before you go, tell me in the comments, which cemetery chilled your heart the most, and would you dare stand there alone at midnight with no flashlight? Good night, dear friend, sleep softly, if the whispers let you.